In June 2021, virologist Xi Jinping, a controversial figure in China who has been called the Batwoman, had said that the lab leak theory was baseless and had accused the world of trying to pour filth on her. Similarly, Dr. Anthony Fauci has claimed that he has not yet seen any evidence of a lab leak, has not yet seen any evidence of a lab leak. In fact, both Chinese and U.S. researchers have said there's no evidence of a lab leak. Absolutely no evidence to support that theory. However, at least with regard to the natural evolution theory through zoonosis and spillover theory, neither has yet there been found any evidence, empirical at least, of any infected animals in the wet market. And at least for that theory, several evolutionary biologists have resorted to inferential analysis to support a hypothesis that would require, at some point, a zoonotic source for the origin, which today still yet remains elusive and unresolved. However, applying an inferential approach to the lab leak theory, it may be very possible to find support for a theory regarding a laboratory origin, even though both Chinese and U.S. researchers are united, having said there's no evidence to support that theory, including Dr. Fauci and the notorious Batwoman, Dr. Zheng Li. And perhaps here I can be of assistance. On January 11th, 2021, Lieutenant General Jody Daniels, the 34th Chief of Army Reserve and 9th Commanding General for the U.S. Army Reserve Command, and the very first woman to hold that position, decided to get the shot 7 months before the order was even given by the Secretary of Defense, retired General Lloyd Austin. And in an interview with reporters from the Office of Public Affairs, she explained, if I play roulette and contract the virus, I could be asymptomatic or on a respirator. I don't want to risk finding out where in the spectrum I'll fall. I want to protect myself, my family, and my co-workers. And with scratch-offs, state lotteries, Native American reservations, and so many other places to enjoy casino life, most people are quite familiar with the basic idea of gambling and playing the odds. And believe it or not, it all comes down to high school math, or probability and statistics, permutations and combinations. And for those big gamers who may take a trip to Las Vegas or to Atlantic City, if you hop over to the roulette wheel, how would you calculate your odds of being a lucky winner? What is the formula for success? Or do you just rely on dumb luck? Well, General Daniels is not only a trained and experienced flag-level military intelligence officer, but also she is a graduate of Carnegie Mellon University, which is ranked 22 of 443 national universities, tied with Emory University in Atlanta and Georgetown in the nation's capital in the top third of national universities. And in order to qualify for admission, you had better have very good SATs between 1480 and 1560 and a GPA of at least 3.9, or you are going to roll snake eyes and lose in the competition to get into that highly selective school that only accepts 14% of applicants. And you look like an intelligent person. So do you believe that you have a good chance of winning an acceptance letter from Carnegie Mellon, a school where 32,000 seniors from high school apply each year? Can you list Carnegie Mellon on your list of safe schools? General Daniels was not only one of the 79% of students who matriculate and graduate from Carnegie Mellon, but she also had earned her Bachelor of Science degree in Applied Mathematics. The top earnings major for seniors who can expect a starting salary today of over $102,000. And you can expect that an applied mathematics major has probably taken a course or two or more in probability and statistics, like at least some juniors in high school do, and probably knew better than most people how to calculate the odds of winning at roulette. When she said, "If I play roulette and contract the virus, I could be asymptomatic or own a respirator." Do you feel lucky? What are the odds of winning at roulette? Well, on an American roulette wheel, like you might find at Las Vegas, there are exactly 38 slots on the wheel where the ball can fall. But if you decide to head off to Monte Carlo and be continental or any other European destination, there are only a total of 37 slots on the wheel. So let's perform a little pretest. Do you have a better chance of winning in Las Vegas with 38 possible slots the ball could fall in, or at Monte Carlo to break the casino where you have only 37? It's a calculation that you should actually be able to do rather quickly, performing it in your head. No paper or pencil or calculator required. However, in October 2022, when the National Report Card had reported its results, examining math scores for students after school closures and pandemic, they found that student test scores plunged in the U.S. as the COVID-19 pandemic erased decades of academic progress, with math scores recording their largest decrease ever and reading scores at a 30-year low. In fact, no state, not even one, or big city, notched any improvements on national math tests, while kids on the cusp of high school were particularly impacted, according to the results from the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Because mathematics is quite cumulative and you must understand the basics before you can graduate to more advanced topics like algebra, calculus, pre-calculus, and probability and statistics. And at least according to Dr. Richard Feynman, a former professor of astrophysics at the prestigious Harvard University, there are only two rules for winning at gambling. One, always bet with somebody else's money. And two, never rely on just dumb luck, because a gambler always makes his luck. Bet with your head and not over it. And at least General Daniels, as an applied mathematics major at the highly competitive Carnegie Mellon University, could tell you the standard odds of winning roulette are calculated by simply dividing the number of winning numbers on the wheel by the number of possible numbers. So, if you have only 37 possible slots in Monte Carlo, and there is only one roulette ball, your chances of winning are only 2.7%. 2.7%. The current case fatality rate in the United States is only 1.1%. Your chances of dying in an automobile accident are only 1.3%. But if you have 38 slots in Las Vegas, your chances go up or go down. Elementary, my dear Watson, you will find him going down because now the roulette ball has more places it can land and fall by just 1/10 of a percentage point in probability to 2.6% of calling yourself a lucky winner. And you look like an intelligent person. General Daniels says, if I play roulette and contract the virus, I could be asymptomatic or on a respirator. But at least according to the evolutionary biologist Michael Warby, who had examined the initial cases in the outbreak in China, only about 7% of those who had been infected required hospitalization. Does that sound like a high risk to avoid? And most of those people who had, in fact, been hospitalized were over the age of 65 and had suffered from other comorbidity factors. So if you are under the age of 65, were your chances of being on a respirator higher or lower than being asymptomatic if you even caught the virus at all? If you had spun the roulette wheel and been infected by COVID-19. Worldwide, according to UNICEF, although there have been over 760 million reported cases, only a total of 27,000 persons aged 18 and under have died. And in the military, although there have been over 450,000 cases of infection amongst uniformed service members on active duty in the reserve component, where General Daniels is in command, and in the state National Guards, only 96 uniformed military members have died. But General Daniels said, if I play roulette and contract the virus, I could be asymptomatic or on a respirator. And she is not only a graduate of Carnegie Mellon University, but also holds a Bachelor of Science in Applied Mathematics. And further, has a PhD in Computer Science from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. So it appears that at least with regard to playing roulette with the virus, the very first step before advancing to the bonus round in this casino is to be infected with the virus, or as they say in the state lottery, to win it, you have to be in it. And Dr. Bruce Aylward, the Assistant WHO Director, has provided a wonderful formulaic expression for being infected with COVID-19, the very beginning of this public health crisis. He had said that getting the virus is a function of coming into contact with the virus, or someone or something that has it, which should be rather axiomatic as the first step. And so therefore it should follow that to be infected by a still unknown animal, you must, as a preliminary matter, come in contact with an animal who has the virus. However, Dr. Aylward adds a secondary step and necessary step for transmission of any infectious disease, including COVID-19. But one must not only come into contact with someone who has the virus, or something that has the virus, but also that person or animal source must be shedding a sufficient quantum of virus in what scientists often describe as a viral load, to load the dice, so to speak, to achieve an infection. Just because you are infected in science does not mean that you are infectious if you are not shedding a sufficient amount of infectious dose. In fact, with the flu, one may become infectious within just 24 hours of having the flu, and one may be sick for weeks with the flu, but you are no longer contagious, as is often described, after the first week. And at least according to the CDC, unfortunately, the quantum of virus particles required to cause a disease condition remains as unknown as the zoonotic source 3 years into a pandemic. Hence, one might say we have no evidence of a zoonotic source and no evidence of how much virus is required to cause an infection. But yet nobody can deny that we have a global public health crisis. Does anyone want to bet that there is no pandemic? Still, epidemiologists have yet another metric to assist in determining the probability that an infected person has the capability to transmit a disease to another person, like a typhoid marriage. And that rate is described as the secondary attack rate, which is exactly what it sounds like. The rate at which a person passes on his or her infection to other secondary persons, which is also like winning at roulette or any other game of chance. Is related in the form of a percentage, one as the numerator to identify the persons that might acquire an infection from an infected person, and the other a denominator of 100 to create a percentage, just like the roulette wheel, at which a gambler has only a 2.6% chance, 1/38 chance of hitting the jackpot to be a lucky winner. And so one might want to have a former professor of astrophysics like Dr. Feynman readily available, because, at least according to Dr. Feynman, the gambler always makes his luck, always bets with someone else's money. At the very beginning of the global public health crisis, the WHO had dispatched 1,800 teams of at least 5 epidemiologists to examine the first 55,924 laboratory-confirmed cases in China by February 20th, 2020. That would be 19 times more cases examined in China than had yet been reported in the entire United States by March 15th, when there were about 3,000 cases nationwide. And when determining the secondary attack rate, based upon the trace contacts of the persons who had been infected in China, they had calculated a secondary attack rate of only as high as 4.8%, or about 2 times higher than winning at the roulette wheel. And unless you are so lucky that you always win at roulette, there is a term for that quantum, according to Johns Hopkins University, when they had calculated the chance of reinfection from COVID-19 in February 2021. They had used the term rare. In the largest sample size trace contact study to date performed on the original strain, scientists had determined from 3 million cases in India that the secondary attack rate was only 4.6%, still under 5%. But let's first provide a familiar example as to how this chance might be barely described as rare, and by simply explaining the odds of winning at a slot machine, the coronavirus slot machine, which for ease of calculation we shall assume has a total of 5 identical rollers in the window, and each with just 20 different symbols, all the same on each wheel, which would translate into how many possible combinations, doing the math of probability and statistics. 5 identical wheels multiplied by 20 different symbols would give you a total of 100 possible combinations. And to win in this pandemic game, you must have a window display on only one line and hit the jackpot with only a 5% chance of becoming a winner, like rolling 5 jackpot bonus symbols across the line in the window. And do you do that every day? Most people don't, but you might just be lucky. And you look like an intelligent person. And so applying this mathematics to the problem regarding either a natural origin or even a spillover or a leak from a laboratory, it should be quite easy to see that the probability of either occurrence would be described as rare, presenting only a 5% chance of either escaping from a laboratory or spilling over from a zoonotic source. And yet, on all empirical evidence, something did somehow occur to set off this rare pandemic and spread around the world. And at least nature does not usually produce that type of probability-defying results all by itself. But as Dr. Fauci has now conceded, tragically, as to the elusive mystery of how this natural evolution may have occurred, we may never know. Indeed, we may never know. But as Dr. Christian Anderson has so poignantly warned, failure to comprehensively investigate the zoonotic origin through collaborative and carefully coordinated studies would leave the world vulnerable to future pandemics arising from the very same human activities that have repeatedly put us on a collision course with novel viruses. And so there we have it. Some mysteries, even for science, may never be known to mankind. But perhaps one day, some breakthrough may help to resolve this mystery, and what a remarkable achievement for science that will be. And yet, what a tremendous loss for storytelling. Or perhaps the answers lie before our very eyes.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.